Hi, so I'm going to be reviewing Cujo today by Stephen King, and I thought you might be interested in my opinion. So, first I'll start with a summary, which is just basically a family of three, moves from New York to Maine with various personal problems, and they meet a really big problem in a St. Bernard called Cujo. You know, when they first meet him, he's just fine, but then the second time he's been bitten by a bat. And that's not really a spoiler because he does that in like the first few pages, so it's okay. You know it at the beginning. My overall feeling with this book was okay. I think the best description that I can come up with for describing this book would be Stephen King on autopilot, because there's a lot of Stephen King elements, but I don't really feel the soul. I don't really feel the love that he usually has for his characters, that he usually has for his stories in it. So one of the elements that he has in his books is basically like setting up dominoes, and then you get to watch how they fall. And like that's exactly what happens in this book too. Oh, you know what? I can put it up here. Okay. And that's exactly what happens in the book here, except that you kind of watch every domino as he sets it up. So it's kind of different from the usual domino effect analogy where you tap one and they all go away. But really you have to watch every domino be like set in place, and then maybe you could piece together why they end up in a terrible situation like they do. But it's something that I find in a lot of Stephen King novels, is that like he likes to set things up and then you just kind of watch as things happen. You can't really anticipate anything. Like if you've read anything by Brandon Sanderson, he gives you clues that you can try to figure out the ending before it happens. That's not really what happens here. I mean, you kind of already know what's going to happen, but he just gives you the details and the particulars. So, yeah. So this is the thing with Stephen King, is that he gives you the situation plain and clear, and it's good, so you know exactly what's going on. So there's no mystery to how his stories go. He's like, hey, this is what happens, and then this is what results from that conflict, that you know exactly what it is. With Stephen King, there's no big reveal. It's just, here's this, and then this is how it resolves. A few cons are that it seems like he actually fluffed out the story. Like the whole premise is there's a rabid dog. He's rabid and he's out to get you. So I think he had to pad the story a little bit, but it just wasn't enough for me. I'm not sure that the premise was enough for a story. But, I mean, he made a whole book out of it, so who am I to say? I mean, that's the biggest con, and that's a really huge con. So I'll just go into the pro. The one pro I found about this book was the writing style. Obviously, Stephen King has a very familiar and comfortable writing style, so I fell into that, and it was just like, reading it feels like I am kind of back in the States. I'm actually not in the States. It makes me feel like I'm kind of back home, and it makes me feel like it's just more about comfort than anything else. So yeah, that's a really big pro for me. So like any Stephen King novel is just really a good comforting book for me. Yeah. So I'm not sure who would like this book. Not saying that no one will like this book. I just think that it's a very unique book because of the premise and how bare bones it is. Maybe people who like monster movies, or like people who like things like stories that are set in a confined area, because for half the book, two of the main characters are confined to their car, and so if you're claustrophobic, you might not want to pick it up. But if you're not, and you like figuring out how people, or watching how people escape things, then maybe you'll like it. I don't want to discourage you from reading it. So with all these things considered, I think my star rating for this would be about 2.5. And that's a really high for me, because and most of that is just for the comfort of this writing style. The premise is really rather weak for me. That's what drives it down from being like maybe a solid 3. If you liked Old Yeller, you probably won't like this at all, because it kind of demonizes the dog. Even though he's out of his mind, like, it kind of makes the dog the scariest part of the book, so I wouldn't read it if you love dogs and can never stand to have a dog be an antagonist. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on Cujo. If you have any thoughts or think I'm wrong in any way, that's okay. I'm here to learn. Yes. And you're welcome to tell me how wrong I am in the comments. If you think I'm right, obviously that's very welcome. Go ahead and tell me. It was really nice to do a book review. I'm not used to this camera stuff, so like what is this? Is this a Skype delayed? Is that what this is? I don't know, but there you go. Have fun with Cujo.